My name is Joe Duffy. I'm the executive director here at Straight and Narrow. Straight and Narrow is the oldest and largest residential drug and alcohol facility in the state of New Jersey. And that's all I'm going to say about it, but you're not here to hear about Straight and Narrow.
We are here this evening to talk about solutions to hunger in the city of Paterson, and specifically, what can a mayor do to address hunger in the city of Paterson? By way of background, a couple of years ago, United Way led a study to find out more about hunger in Passaic County, what is causing hunger, what are the barriers to people being able to get enough food. Not surprisingly, the number one reason that we heard for people having trouble getting enough food was affordability, not having enough money to cover all of the basics of life, and usually food gets the short end of the stick when it comes to the budget. In addition, we also heard that there is not enough good food in the community, food that people want to buy, want to eat, want to serve their families. We also heard that transportation is a challenge for folks and that they need more retail outlets that are closer to their homes. And lastly, we heard that sometimes that there are decisions that are made at the national level, at the state level, or at the local level that make it difficult for people to get the food that they need. And that's where today's conversation comes in. There are lots of ways that a mayor can make it easier for people to get healthy and affordable food. So that's what we're here to talk about. I want to thank all of the candidates who responded and agreed to join us today for this very important conversation. And I want to acknowledge all of the members of the organizing committee for tonight's event. These nonprofit organizations: City Green, CUMAC, Catholic Charities, the Paterson Alliance, St. Paul's CDC, United Way, and the Food Policy Council. And lastly, we want to thank the Record for their support and moderating of this event. And with that, I'd like to welcome and hand over the program to our moderator, Alfred Douglas.
Hopefully this will work if I do it like that. I want to go over a couple of ground rules, and just a little housekeeping. This is a sort of informal conversation that we're going to have for about a little more than an hour. We'll stop a little before 8 because there are some goodies, I think, to be raffled. One of the things I would like to ask of all of the candidates is to be respectful to each other and respectful to the folks out here in the audience. The subject that we are going to talk about is hunger. So while there are many, many, many issues facing the people of Paterson and the challenges that we'll be facing whoever is elected mayor this spring, the challenges that we want to have tonight are, one, to stay on topic, and two, to stay on the topic of hunger. So I would respectfully acknowledge if anyone wants to grandstand, Hinchcliffe Stadium is a little bit of ways, and it's in need of some new bleachers. I believe Jeff Jones will be joining us a little late in the game. And my understanding is Joey Torres is somewhere between Jackson and here. So hopefully he will also join us in progress. I'm going to begin by asking each candidate to give maybe about a 3-minute statement. It's informal, so we don't have little clocks that are going to be clicking away. Oh, well, how great. Do you have something that says 3, or you just have 2?
Just 2, so they'll start. I'll hold up.
You can hold 2, and then when you're holding 2 for a really long time, it's 3. And then from there, we'll begin some questions, and I will try, and I might need your help in the order because I'm at a disadvantage here, of beginning, when we start with just questions, we'll begin with Maria Teresa Feliciano to start, but then the second question will start with Mr. Gilmore and go on there. I don't think we'll get through 7 rounds of questions, so I'll kind of show, someone will never have the opportunity to go first. So with that, I would like to ask Ms. Feliciano to just an opening statement.
Thank you, Alfred. And Thank you to the organizations that put together this forum. I believe that one of the benefits of these forums is that in an intimate kind of setting, the voters and citizens can get to know the candidates, ask questions, know their plans, and make a better, more informed decision as to who they would pick. As you know, Paterson has many distinctions as a city, one of them being the cradle of the Industrial Revolution. Paterson was shaped by men and women from different areas who came to the city after its founding, and with nothing more than hard work, perseverance, and their ideas, they were able to make a life for themselves. That's the history of our city, and we have overcome many, even natural disasters, and have remained resilient as a city, able to get out of crisis and survive and be well. My family came to Paterson in 1967, and I grew up in what used to be then the Italian section of the city, Market Street and Cianci Street. We were one of only 2 Latino families in that area. That's where I grew up. I went to school here, Kennedy High School, I don't know how many East Side, and then had the opportunity to go out to college, graduate school. I have a master's in public administration. I just retired from the judiciary, from the New Jersey Superior Court after 28 years of service, the last 12 in administration of the criminal division. And I'm telling you all of this because my life, some stages have been completed, education, personal, and so forth, at a time when our city is at its lowest in a very long time. If you have been in Paterson for the last 2 decades, you have seen our decline in every area, taxes, safety, services, and so on. And at this point, I keep saying our city is at a point of do or die. We pick it up and we do something totally new with it, the way many other cities have done it and have been able to have renaissances and come out of them. Many of these cities here in New Jersey and in other states, so it can be done. We can do it. These elections are extremely important, if not the most important we've had in a long time, because we as citizens are going to be able to make that decision as to who's going to lead this city from this point forward. Thank you.
Mr. Gilmore?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Gilmore, and I'm running for mayor. 4A on the ballot, and I believe the question is issues related to hunger, and I don't think you can talk about hunger without talking about poverty. And poverty, under and unemployment, all related. I have the distinct distinction, unlike my fellow candidates here, to have run an anti-poverty agency. I was a regional social service agency director for 5 towns in Connecticut. We had a pantry. We did apply and receive funds from the food collaboratives up there. We ran summer food service programs, feeding kids in the public parks in the summertime to continue their nutritional value. Family reunification and foster grandparenting and other programs under the auspices of Community Action Agency in that network, in the continuum of care. I'm very much aware of the issues related to hunger, poverty, under and unemployment. And as mayor, I believe I would be able to champion some of those issues for you, spearhead and help with the city resources, fundraisers, putting the city stamp on some of those activities related to enhancing your well-being, keeping those agencies alive. Unlike Mayor Jones, who is not here yet, cut off the supply of funding to some of the agencies. We would make sure that those continued fundings are there and possibly enhancing the opportunity for more funding, ensuring that you do exist. Right now, they're getting ready to cut off or take back monies from you as well, not necessarily maybe this group, but others in the provider arena. I think it's very important. Paterson is 50 to 60% of people at or below the federal poverty guideline, and nobody's talking about it. We need to talk about that. Too many folk are worried about how much their taxes are, but they're not worried about where the money goes or making sure that the money is spent properly. That's part of the problem. It's an over-expenditure of taxes because of the waste in program execution. So that's what we need to do. I would be your mayor to help you sustain and to grow your particular agencies without working on these shoestring budgets that we have. No guarantees, but I would be helping in that area because I know and I've done it before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Aslan Diao Sr., and I am also running for mayor, as most of you know. I was a former councilman in the city of Paterson for 12 years, and I also served as council president. Like many of the issues, this is one that has been totally neglected for the longest time. Where do we go from here? How do we address this problem? Are we going to be able to say immediately if any single one of these candidates or myself take office that we're going to be able to address this problem? Honestly, I don't think so. But with a common sense approach, I think together with all the outreach programs and CUMAC and all the other organizations that provide the services, having that relationship with City Hall is going to be the key. Somebody needs to take a stand. Right now, the city is in a major crisis. The crime is, that's it? I think.
No, that's,
You're confusing me. Oh my God, I was saying something.
60 more minutes.
The city's in a crisis, and crime is really the number one issue. And poverty is what's contributing to the crime. No jobs, no economic development, no community development. And what's the reason for that? People are in fear, and people don't want to come to Paterson. Even though we had Home Depot built, we had Lowe's built, we had Center City built, we have become a social service community. We're not creating opportunities and we're not creating jobs. Kids are on the corners in all parts of the city selling drugs to survive. There are a lot of children that can't go home and eat. Schools are not providing adequate lunch. Everything seems to be processed. Nobody's talking about these things. Well, I'm glad to know, and I'm glad this forum is specifically geared to talking about how we're going to address the problem. Everybody said the difference between this election and many elections is that we want a person with a plan. I have a plan, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you'll take a copy with you this evening when you leave. And I specifically address fighting poverty on the local level. And this is what we need to do. I have I have done quite a bit of research on this because we need to see what is leading up to the major problems that we're having. And I hope in this discussion today, during the question and answer, that I'll be able to provide for you my plan, which is a common sense plan and a common sense approach to provide adequate food supplies to our youth and our senior citizens, and those are the people that are mostly neglected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you so much, United Way and nonprofit organizations that are a member of the Food Council. I appreciate having this opportunity. Is this mic coming across okay? Yeah. Okay. I am fortunate enough to have worked in many of the agencies and partnered with many of the agencies that are here in the audience. I have also been fortunate enough to run a community center in Springfield, Massachusetts, and one of the programs was a food program. So I'm familiar with the pantries and all of the other things that happen, as well as going to USDA and picking up the food and delivering it to folks in need. In addition, I've worked with St. Paul's, United Way. I certainly have had partnerships over the years with CUMAC. One of the things that I was able to bring to the Department of Health and Human Services is the opportunity, unfortunately we had to do it, but the opportunity to partner with CUMAC ECHO twice. One after, immediately following Hurricane Irene, we did a food drive, and all of the food that was delivered to CUMAC, we referred those folks that were impacted by the storm. And Sandy, we did within the Department of Health and Human Services, all of the divisions, and there's 9 of them, volunteered to do and collect different foods, and we were looking for the meats and the fresh fruits and vegetables. And the office of the director, I was stuck on chicken. So we sent a whole lot of chicken down there so that people that were impacted by Sandy with no electricity for days, weeks even, were able to receive some food. Born and raised in the city of Paterson. So I know that we have the issues. I know the issues, but I also have the hands-on experience. I know how to partner. I know how to be a part of a committee. And I know how to help everybody do what we need to do and be an active partner on that team. I roll up my sleeves. I don't sit there and just say, oh, you know, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, this is what, I take an active role. We've got a bird in here. So I take an active role in whatever it is that we need to do. I am thankful for this opportunity, and I just need to let folks know that as much as we can do to help alleviate the problem, the money is a problem, Department of Community Affairs is an issue. We cannot spend the money and allocate the money like we would like to, and we have to go through many hoops in order to spend the money that we do have. But there are ways of doing things to help meet the needs of the citizens, even if it is food drives in the event of an emergency, or even if it is massive food drives, or planning to have food drives to make sure that our pantries are not hurting, especially during our summer months. However, the city is limited, but we can do things. I'm not promising. I know that we can build coalitions, and I just want to be reality-based. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andre Say, and I am seeking the position of mayor in Paterson. I have served on every level of government, whether it be federal, state, municipal, but arguably the most enriching and enlightening experience is when I worked in the nonprofit sector. 7 years ago, I was named the inaugural executive director of the Paterson Alliance, which is a coalition of nonprofit organizations in the city. And when I took the helm, there was only about 15 nonprofit organizations that were part of the membership. By the time we had worked to increase that membership, we were up to 70. And I say it was enriching and enlightening because I got to really focus on the challenges that Pattersonians face every day. And I worked with people like Joe Duffy, Sister Gloria, Von Zeidema, Reverend Gruber, Jennifer Poppin, Elvira Spencer. And we focused on a lot of these issues. And we had solutions for these issues. One of the biggest problems was that a lot of our students in our schools weren't eating breakfast. And think about this, if you want to get off to a smart start, you have to have some type of nourishment before you can get educational nutrition. And I'm proud to say that working in collaboration with all these nonprofit organizations, we increased the number of students that were receiving free or reduced breakfasts in our school. As a councilman, there was a program known as Sustainable Jersey. It's a certification program. And I'm proud to say that the municipal council took action because Sustainable Jersey, one component, focuses on eating local and eating better. And we worked with City Green, and we made sure that community gardens and school gardens were planted so that young people knew the value of fresh fruit produce, which they hardly get because, as Yvonne has stated many times, Patterson's a food desert. And another initiative that we took on the city council was to adopt an ordinance that would designate Paterson an economic growth zone. And one component within the growth zone ordinance is that we would give incentives to developers who wanted to build a supermarket in Paterson. And as you know, we're hard-pressed to find a supermarket in Paterson. So that's one thing we're very proud of. But as mayor, I want to get more involved as far as what United Way's initiative is concerned, as far as the Passaic County Food Policy Council. See, there's a whole host of people that are members, whether it be Assemblyman Wimberly or other members of the Paterson Alliance. I think the mayor should have a seat at the table. At the very least, someone from within the administration should serve on that council to know what we're doing to create a hunger-free community in this city. And Kumak Echo, I just recently read, I mean, sometimes their shelves are dangerously low. We have to do something about seeking assistance, perhaps going to the State Department of Agriculture and trying to get grant assistance that we could provide to nonprofits who are laboring in the vineyards every day in this city. And one thing that I've seen as far as the best practice is concerned, because Yvonne in her introduction talked about how it's not affordable or accessible. In Chicago, they have a program known as Fresh Moves, where they go to people. It's almost like an ice cream truck, but they're delivering fresh fruit and vegetables. Thank you.
We'll begin with some questions. I would ask if anyone's got cell phones that are doing noisy things to silence them, step on them, do whatever you need to do to make them go well. No, that's okay. That's okay. That reminded me, I didn't make my cell phone comments, so I don't say. Let's start. One of the challenges that cities like Paterson face, and it was mentioned that Lowe's came here, and all of those issues to bring the big box stores in, is a supermarket. This past fall, Governor Christie and then Mayor Booker were at the groundbreaking for what I believe is going to be ShopRite in Newark. It was a huge victory for Newark, because in many ways a supermarket is seen as two things. One, it's a place where there's a broad option of food places for people who live here, but it's also like a clarion call to people that this is a vibrant city, there's a stable economic base, and supermarkets tend to drive in other businesses. So can you talk about what you would do if you became mayor, to not just talk about bringing in a supermarket, but how we bring in a Pathmark, a ShopRite, something like that, into the city of Paterson? And we'll start with this thing.
As we discuss the issue of hunger, it just occurs to me that a too large of a percentage of the children of the residents in Paterson go to bed hungry, and a quarter of them are children, obviously. And I think it's a failure of society, of the city that we are, that happens. To tackle that issue, we have to do it in a comprehensive manner, not only providing food for people hungry, but making it nutritious, beneficial. It's a comprehensive approach. Bringing supermarkets into the city is only one aspect of what we would do. The content of the food that we offer in those supermarkets, I think, it's more of a priority. And this has been taking place around the nation. Programs creating awareness as to nutrition. The First Lady is a good staple of that. Going nationally with her vegetable garden and so forth. This is only an example of how we here in Paterson, but as a society, need to engage in a comprehensive, either educational awareness program that would make us aware of how the nutritional value, the beneficial value of foods, and how to eat. One thing. The second thing is, we need to engage in actually create partnerships among different segments that will help us both create awareness and provide the right foods at the right time. We have the basis to attract the big supermarkets to the city, but I think more than attracting these big markets is we should zero in on attracting the venues for the right products and make it a comprehensive program that would engage these supermarkets that we bring in into also the educational process and the awareness program that we would have.
Mr. Gilmore, and I urge you to try to stay on the question. How do we attract the Pathmark? How do we attract the ShopRite? How do we bring in that one supermarket that changes everything?
Thank you. there's a challenge in that question that needs to be addressed in terms of supermarkets and or food industry is a business. They're only going to go where they're going to make money. And you have to understand that the median income in Paterson is somewhere around $30,000. So when you're talking about bringing in these supermarkets, you have to realize that they're in it for the money. And obviously the money is not here in that market, or they would be here. They've come and they've gone. Part of the problem is that some of these stores that we see, and not the top tier stores, they come in and they give us sub-grade products. You can leave Paterson and go to one of the stores in the surrounding areas, and the meat looks so much fresher. The prices are so much better when you're paying in an urban environment like this extra for being poor. So the question begs, I mean, it's a business. And if it doesn't make sense to come here, if you're not going to make a good return on your investment, then why come? Go back to what we need to do is provide a better economic base in terms of being able to spend that money and entice those businesses to our community. So it's a bigger question than just how do you get them here. There's other peripheral things that need to happen in order to make that happen as well. And we have to understand that it's just no quick fix or no easy answer, and it takes a comprehensive thought process and analysis to go forward with people that understand the industry and where we're at and where we need to go. I am so happy to be able to say I'm that kind of critical thinker. When you sit down and start looking at root cause analysis, you have to understand the problem fully before you can implement the fix. And part of the problem is that folk don't have that kind of money here to entice those big stores to come in. So what do we have in the meantime? We have small entrepreneurs. We have mid-sized and smaller stores. And that's what we have. We bring those other big stores in here, they're either going to fail or they're going to overprice the products, and you're not going to be in them anyway. So let's be smart about how we go about looking at that and maximize what it is we have and go after those shortcomings that we see that we have as well before we start reaching blue sky. Thank
How do we bring a path forward?
Sure, well, that's not a question that can be answered in 3 minutes, and I think it's going to be a combination of answers that might get us there if we're lucky enough. What we do know is we've had Pathmark in Paterson, and we've had food towns. And why did they leave? There was a reason for it. Because we have made this community a social service community. So without getting into the details about how we got there, how are we going to bring them back? Well, we have to make the city clean and safe. It's got to be attractive. We have to create new job opportunities. We need a live in Paterson, work in Paterson plan. People are too quick to run out of town. They are not safe here. So if we're going to talk about economic development, and we're going to talk about bringing businesses back, we have to clean our house first. I don't want to get off subject, but there's no single way you can really answer this question. The school system's been taken over by the state. Everybody wants the school system back from the state. The state is laughing at us saying, you can't even manage your city. So what are we really talking about here? It's not going to take a brilliant idea. It's going to talk about change. It's going to talk about education. Until we make that mark, nobody's going to come here, ladies and gentlemen. Center City is about to fall. With the exception of Home Depot and Little Falls, with the 3% sales tax, people are coming here going shopping there, they're surviving. We need to give them more incentive. We need to give them something that we're going to be able to work with. The people in Paterson go shopping once a month. That's what we have here. We are no longer the blue-collar, middle-class community that we used to be. So let's start by creating new job opportunities, and let's talk about making the city cleaner and safer, and then we could really talk about about attracting new businesses, because that is the only thing that's going to bring them here. There are people ready and willing to invest in Paterson. They want to invest here. But you know what they keep saying? Because of the crime, because of the fears, because of the unsafetiness, because of the lack of police presence and visibility, why would I want to come and invest in your community? So we can address these things. They will come here. It's going to take a strong leader, and it's going to take all the right people in all the right positions to work collectively together to bring these resources back. We had Coca-Cola here. Do you remember that? We had some of the biggest companies here. They have left. There's a reason for that. They weren't being successful here. If you go to Toto or Wayne, look at their industrial areas. The taxes are low. Everybody wants to go to those communities. We need to address the zoning issues in the city of Paterson, and then we can talk about how we're going to really attract businesses back to our city. Thank you.
And again, I'd urge you to try to, if it's possible, to stick with the question. If you want to elaborate on that it's not possible to bring a supermarket, I would like to try to stay more on the subject of that unattainable goal or that attainable goal.
Okay, I got you. Well, you know, I agree with my colleagues up here, so how's that for sure? But here's an idea: bring folks to the table. Bring folks that own the supermarkets to ask them the questions. Why aren't you here? What is it that we can do to help motivate you to come here? What is it that you need? You know, we can make these assumptions, but if you don't ask the question, you don't know the answer, then you can't fix the problem. So that's what I would do as mayor. I would entertain the meetings with these commercial businesses, i.e. the Pathmarks. I started to say Big Y. That's Springfield, Massachusetts. But the Pathmarks and the ShopRites, and talk to them and ask them, what is it that we can do to bring you back? We need to raise the bar. We need to raise the bar in the city of Paterson. All we have is fast food. You know, go to McDonald's, go to, Popeyes, go there. All we have is fast food, which isn't good, which isn't healthy. So we do need to bring the supermarkets. The food basics, I go grocery shopping there, but the products, as Mr. Gilmore said, are not as fresh as they should be or could be when you walk right over to West Paterson. East Paterson. East Paterson, thank you. East Paterson, the Pathmark. So, and then the groceries are fresher, but they're also more expensive. So we're also, again, talking about poverty. We're talking about people that are living from paycheck to paycheck, and that's why some of these folks won't come in here. But again, you have that conversation. You entertain the conversation, and you see what is it that we can do differently. Starbucks, all these different upper level stores, restaurants, coffee houses, they're not here. They are not here. And we need to raise the bar. We need to raise the level. We need to bring us all up to par, because we need to demonstrate that we have pride in Paterson. And so we need to have everything else that everyone else has. So Ridgewood, Hawthorne, all of those things, we need to have those things in Paterson. But we have to do the education. We also have to do the jobs. We have to address our issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we're going alphabetically, so just jump right in.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late, but I did hear the question. I'm going to make sure I got it. How do we attract big stores to Paterson? Is that correct?
Supermarkets, specifically supermarkets.
Okay. Not long ago, we entertained Walmart. Walmart had a strong vested interest in Hawthorne. They called me, we spoke to them, and Hawthorne had no interest in Walmart. And Walmart asked me if I would ask, Hawthorne asked me if I would ask Walmart to stay in Hawthorne. And I said to the mayor, are you serious? You want me to ask Walmart to build in your city when your city doesn't want them? And so my position was, and so what am I really supposed to do? I asked Walmart, why don't you come to Paterson? We've got an area right off of Route 20 and Market Street. somewhat industrial, but if you're willing to make the investment, we will do, and this is how you do it, through incentives, some concessions, and some land reconfiguration. Now, we don't own the land, but we could work with you to bring that in. They then looked at 80 Beckwith Avenue, which is across the street after 21st Avenue. They considered that as well. Part of the challenge was that they're industrial sites. Part of the challenge, they're big and they demand certain things. So, in order to bring any big box store here, the Lowe's, the Home Depots, the city had to give Home Depot $1 million in order for them to come, for the land. Lowe's, we have to offer them something. That day is still upon us, that if we want that investment, we're going to have to invest in them. I think that there is, and what you should know is, ICSC, International Council of Shopping Centers, the city of Paterson has begun that discussion with them about exactly this conversation. How do we bring big box opportunities to the city of Paterson? And what we had to do is find out, how do you get to that conversation? And so we did. And a conversation happened a week ago, and I think another one's happening on Thursday with this exact same council to discuss that. The other thing is, we've got City Green, who's been doing growing. We have the potential for hydroponic technology. So the question and the answer is innovation. The innovation of saying, yes, we're industrial, yes, we're poor, but we offer something you want. We offer money. And we need to find a way together to make this work. That's the only way it's going to work. And I understand the challenges. But ladies and gentlemen, these challenges have existed since the 1940s, the 50s, the 60s. And now we need to figure out the formula. And right now, it is through negotiations, innovation, incentives, and hopefully their investment.
In my introduction, I said, sadly, Paterson is a food desert. But fortunately, there are opportunities on the federal, state, and municipal levels that we can leverage. For example, it was mentioned earlier that Michelle Obama has the Let's Move campaign. Well, her husband, President Obama, has proposed a package of hundreds of millions of dollars to help facilitate the construction of supermarkets in urban centers. But it's been stalled in Congress, because as you know, he's encountered a great deal of opposition on other issues, this one notwithstanding. So this is something, if we can organize as a community, engage stakeholders, perhaps we can make that push so that ultimately we can get that federal piece of legislation so we can get expedited to get these supermarkets. Now, on the state level, our legislature adopted the Economic Opportunity Act of 2013. And one component of that was to include Paterson as one of the 4 municipalities that would benefit from this economic growth zone ordinance. Well, on the municipal level, we adopted that ordinance. And there's a provision that says developers should have some type of incentive to build supermarkets in food deserts, namely in Paterson. So if there's anything we're going to leverage, it's that piece of legislation that was adopted by the state legislature, that was unanimously adopted by the municipal council, and it's a tool we can work with. Something the city council also did a few years back, Center City was mentioned. Center City was thinking of putting a supermarket on the lower level of its facility. We adopted that ordinance, and Yvonne's nodding her head in approval. We adopted that ordinance to facilitate that as well, but sadly they haven't been able to attract a supermarket to Center City. So there are, ladies and gentlemen, there are tools in place. I invite you to read more about this Economic Opportunity Act of 2013 and Paterson's Economic Growth Zone designation. Because if we are going to attract a supermarket, it's one thing we need to utilize. The tool that has already been in place and received a 9-0 vote from the current city council. We worked hard to do this, so we have to make sure that everyone is aware of this legislation and how much we can benefit by having something in place, particularly a supermarket in the city. And in the 6th Ward, we do have the farmers market, and we're proud. It's the oldest farmers market in the state. But not everyone has access to it. Earlier was mentioned about transportation issues. So one thing we can also work on as far as supermarkets are concerned is perhaps having other farmers markets all over the city or in specific sites in the city. At the very least, start with a seasonal approach to these farmers markets. As far as attracting supermarket, the incentive is there in the form of the economic growth zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't we go with like 2-minute limits on the questions, because I want us to try to get to more. Well, let's go to sort of the other extreme. There are a lot of fast food places. And, people want to open fast food places. There are a lot of bodegas. There's a need for a mix of everything in a community. Should the mayor and the city governance board look at putting a lid on how many of these places you're going to allow to open, so that you don't have a lot of places that are pretty much selling stuff that's unhealthy? Is that something that you feel can be controlled by? Can the mayor set that agenda, set that tone, or would you see that as hurting any new business you do not want to impact? Why don't we start with Mr. Gilmore so that we let everybody get the same first question?
Okay. As you said, my name is Gilmore, not Bloomberg. I don't believe in putting those type of restrictions on businesses or entrepreneurs. Your business lives or dies by the market. If there's no demand, then certainly there's no supply. You can put 10 chicken stores on one block, but they're all not going to survive. You can put 3 or 4 bakeries right together, they're not going to make it. That's why they have market studies for some of these businesses that we see out there when they open up. The Dunkin' Donuts, you can't have one within a certain number of feet from another, or any other types of those stores. No, I don't believe that I would be supporting any type of oversight in that manner. I would let people decide on their own whether or not they wanted to eat their grease or they wanted to go to the juice bar. I'm just not going to do that. Don't subscribe to that at all.
Mr. Down, we'll go down that way.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear my colleague to my left talk about food deserts. 3 times he mentioned it. I have that in my plan that I initiated and introduced several months ago. It only leads me to believe that my council colleague likes my ideas and he's sharing his concern. Well, that's our problem. We have too many food deserts in our city that are not providing an adequate amount of proper nutrition. What they do is they keep offering more processed things. So the big stores are gone. What do? Senior citizens find it very difficult to go to the local stores because of the fact that they're handicapped or they're elderly or the fear of going to a local store. So maybe what we should do is bring a mobile version of quality foods to the neighborhoods where people can access them. And yes, it would be very difficult to regulate any single business and try to eliminate them from your local neighborhoods. Everybody has a right to open up a store, to be prosperous, but at least offer something. Offer something of more of a quality food for the community. Give them something that will be more nutritional for them. So if we're going to talk about regulating certain businesses out of the area, I don't think it's going to happen. Because you will always have a difference of opinion by 9 council members, which is legislated by them. If the mayor has a good enough idea and a plan that he wants to initiate, he would need the support of at least a minimum of 5 of those officials to pass that law and make things like that happen. But I will say this, there is definitely a need to reduce the amount of bodegas and other improper stores that we have in our city, because they are not functioning and providing to the level that they should be. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I would not put a lid on fast foods coming into the community, although I do have issues with it. But the problem with that, we'll kind of be schizophrenic about this answer, because the problem with it is the fact that there are many families, unfortunately, because of living because of their income level, have to survive on 4 hamburgers, you know, $1 a piece, so that the kids don't go to bed hungry. You know, I was poor and didn't know it. You know, so it's like we had to have rice and eggs for dinner, you know, we had to make up those kinds of things to survive. But no, I wouldn't put a lid on it, primarily because we're shooting ourselves in our foot, because businesses generate revenue. And so when it's commercial businesses that do bring revenue to the city, then, you know, that has an impact on how much your property taxes go up. You know, they may not go up that much if we have more businesses within the communities. We need education. We need to educate people in terms of how to eat and how to stretch the meals. What we do with the seniors during the summer months is we bring the farmers market trucks to the seniors' living housing units. And so they come downstairs and they spend their vouchers and they buy fresh fruits and vegetables. So we make sure that that happens, and we also have it come to site at the Division of Senior Services where the Seniors Nutrition Program is. So we do try to address that, but to put a cap on, you know, fast foods would kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. Thank you.
My answer is it depends. A few moments ago I might have said absolutely not, but I'm going to say it depends. I'd say we're going to take a look at fast foods and bodegas and we leave out liquor stores and other things off that table. I think we made a big mistake. But it depends. Fast food restaurants and bodegas are simply people who are entrepreneurs who invested in a dream. There's a lot of conversation that talks about the nutritional value. When you go to a restaurant, you go there because that's what you want to eat. And you go there because that's what you want to pay for. Nutrition is probably the last thing you're thinking about when you go there. They're in business to make a profit. And I would love to have more and a variety, considering we have 52 different nationalities and ethnic groups, because it won't just serve Paterson, it serves the entire region. Now, there are some pluses to that. It's the growth of products that we might be able to farm here, like with City Greens, hydroponic technology. It's a value. Let's not forget, big businesses start out as small businesses. The person who made one candle became a major manufacturer of large candles because they had a starting place. Fast food, bodegas are all part of that. Do we need to regulate differently? Probably. But the purpose to cut off travel, tourism, trade, import, export for a city that's this close to New York City, this is an opportunity. It's about the planning, it's about the design, and it's about the regulation. But I will close and say on that nutrition issue, nutrition is about the families. And while some families don't know how to prepare a good meal or may not have the resources, that is still the family's responsibility. Business has a different set of principles. They want to make a buck, they want to expand themselves. So let's not cut off our noses despite our faces, and I'm thankful. Thank you.
Traditionally, bodegas are owned by moms and pops. And I wouldn't want to stand in the way of people who are typically Pattersonians from starting up a small business in a city that's typically underserved. And that's why I've been leery of Walmart, because that's one thing they've been accused of, predatory practices. They come in, they drive their prices down, and they drive out these mom and pop stores. However, a mayor has to make it a priority to bring in a major supermarket in this city. And how can you do that? Well, outlining the vision and having that as a part of your master plan, but also appointing people to the planning board that share that vision. So if you have commissioners on this planning board that understand that there's a necessity for a supermarket, those are those individuals that you want to serve on that planning board. And we do have tons of vacant properties in the city. And I've mentioned this to you before, not to be misunderstood. There's an abandoned properties list that we can make available, made available, but we have to leverage so much better so that people know that there's potential here. So using the abandoned properties ordinance and the economic growth zone ordinance, we should be able to attract a supermarket to this city. But we should also start by inserting that in the master plan and making sure that people on the planning board share the mayor's vision and know that bringing a supermarket to Paterson is a top priority.
No, I will not regulate or try to control the amount of bodegas and fast food stores that we have for the reasons that my colleagues have so well explained. Small businesses are the industry of Paterson, of our city, who no longer has an industry, so we wouldn't be cutting that. What I would do, however, is make these bodegas and fast food places and any other food dispensing store part of our coalition, of our awareness creation coalition about nutrition and participation. And I think there's a lot that we can do with them in the area of disseminating information, getting information to the parents, to the schools about good eating and nutrition. And these bodegas, fast food places, and the other partners that we engage in this project are not only our information carriers, but they will also implement some of the initiatives that we put in place. We can ask, for example, the bodegas post a lot more information on nutritional value or not value on food. We can ask that healthy alternatives be offered to people, in addition to the regular food that they serve, that healthy alternatives offered. So there's a million ideas that we can use to engage these partners in our purpose, which will be create awareness and access to information, and therefore, for our objective of good nutrition and beneficial food that we can consume, rather than, I would say, putting a lid on businesses. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. Really one of the challenges that Paterson has is that a lot of people don't have their own cars. They don't have families. If they do have a car, it's not going to be people have the luxury of, say, 2 cars where someone can drive to work and somebody can do all the food shopping. So getting to food, whether it's places that are vibrant, and Paterson has some very vibrant places, or nearby suburbs. At one point, there was a Paterson trolley, I believe. Was it a trolley in Paterson? Yeah. Whether you could bring something like that back, whether you could come up with a veggie van, whatever you want to, the city has limited resources. Is it possible, if you're mayor, to come up with some method of affordable transportation and get people to the food where it exists, to perhaps also help bring other neighborhoods back more to vibrancy because people can get there more easily? Why don't we start with Mr. Dow?
Yes, there is. I talk about that in my plan. There's a lot of things that we can do, and we really need to partner with all the nonprofit organizations, specifically the churches, these kind of organizations. There's no plan set in place where we all come together and we talk about this issue. Paterson used to be a horse and buggy community. It's one of the 3rd largest cities in the state of New Jersey. We're supposed to have 146,000 people, according to the census. We might have close to 190,000, 200,000 people living here. There's a lot of things wrong with the city right now. They are not being addressed, which contribute to these kind of issues. Until we make this city clean and safe, everything that we want to do is not going to work. One of the things that contributed to why we are where we are today is, for an example, the Mayoral funds. Surrounding communities have to meet their responsibility and their obligation to provide affordable housing in their communities, but they choose not to. They choose to take their monies and send it to communities like Paterson, so we can keep the element here, as they say. Doesn't give us an opportunity to grow. Doesn't give us the opportunity to see what everybody else is benefiting from. So everything that we're going to talk about today about bringing these kind of sources or resources back to the communities is going to depend on making our city clean and safe. We can get vehicles, or you have Meals on Wheels, they do it. They only address to certain senior citizens during the day hours. Are they bringing them meals in the evening? No. Are we having any visibility as far as food trucks coming to the neighborhood? No. What's the incentive? What are we going to give them? Yes, we can do it. We have a trolley in Paterson. It's really not being utilized. Maybe we should have a system in our city where we should eliminate all the cars from downtown Paterson and have a trolley system. Park in the parking lot, get on the trolley system, and make your way around. So there's a lot of things that need to be done here, and yes, I do agree, it can be done. Thank you.
One of the things that we do with the seniors is provide them transportation to the supermarkets on a weekly basis, the seniors and disabled citizens. So we do have a system in place that takes, that's part of the Division of Senior Services. So we do have that experience. What I would suggest is that, because I, as mayor, would like to have, we're going to host quality of life meetings in all of the wards. And each ward is different. Each ward has its own personality, characteristics. So the needs in the first ward may not be the same needs in the second ward. The bigger problems, absolutely. But how to address the problem of transportation, you can find out there in that particular ward meeting. Would you need a ride to go to the supermarket? Find out, assess the situation and see what the needs are. And then go back, just like Councilman Gal said, go back to the churches. Look at the churches. A lot of the churches have vans. A lot of the churches have vehicles that they may loan to us to do this, to make sure that we pay for gas, take care of those kinds of charges, and probably even with the liability insurance we have to consider. There's a lot of things that need to happen, and there's a lot of ways that we can do it, but we have to process, we have to go through the process to find out what will work. Thank you.
I just want to make sure I get the question. Is it about? Go ahead, please.
Well, if there once was a more vibrant trolley system for the city, is there a way of coming up with something like a trolley system that gets people, not just seniors, but like the moms and who are at home with the kids, getting people to the food, whether it's in the city of Paterson, whether it's surrounding the city of Paterson? How do we get them to the food that's out there?
Okay. Just so before I answer the question, just so to be clear, when you said it was a system of trolleys, are you talking about back in the 1920s?
I know about the old, there was you understand, once upon a day in the city of
Okay.
Paterson.
Okay.
So I guess I'm hearkening back to a time when the city was flush.
Got it. Okay.
And
Because that's
looking
where.
forward to a time when the city hopefully will be flush again.
Okay. The reason I asked for the clarity is there was a time when we did have trolleys, and that was so long ago. The more recent trolleys that we've seen, there are two of them, owned by the parking authority, and they are expensive to maintain. And they were running up and down the street, you saw them, green and beige, and they were trying to do exactly that, but they cost money. And we have talked about bringing them back to life. We've looked at moving them to the MUA as a feature of their operation, but of course it costs money. What we're talking about is access. And access can be divvied up or given in a number of ways. For every supermarket, and I've seen a few, the most recent one downtown, actually delivers food. Did you know that Pathmark delivers food? You go online, my daughter does it all the time. You go online, you order your food, they deliver it. So some of that has been met. But we do have jitneys. While I don't agree with the way they act sometimes, it is a cheaper version of getting from point to point. Paterson is a walkable city. It isn't that far for young people. Safety, we can question that. But I wanted to talk about with jitneys, trolleys, cabs, and a number of people do have cars. That's why we can't find cars. And let's stop talking about that people don't have stuff. A lot of people have stuff. What we need to talk about is those places where we know folks may not have and build a system there. Because we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in a major transportation system, and I know that's not where you're reaching, but that's what you'll be talking about, a major traffic study by which the master plan, as was stated, did take a look at it. Last thing, clean and dirty. Ladies and gentlemen, when you have a concentration of poor and poverty in any place, you're going to have crime. when you have a concentration of poverty and other things of that nature, you're going to have many of the things we're going to talk about. But let me remind you, that has been going on for decades. There's no easy solution to people.
Atlantic County has a system where they shuttle citizens to supermarkets. Paterson is the seat of Passaic County. So it's something that, if we're going to be taken seriously as the capital of Passaic County, then we have to work with the Board of Chosen Freeholders to see if there's a system that we can establish that's similar to Atlantic County. But earlier I talked about how we can partner with nonprofits. And one way we can partner with nonprofits is to work in unison to go down to the New Jersey State Department of Agriculture, because there are opportunities as far as grant assistance that are available. So if the city were to partner with these nonprofits and serving on this council that the United Way has started, perhaps they would recognize that this is a serious issue in Paterson that needs to be addressed immediately. But within my introduction, I also talked about what they did in the south side of Chicago. And it's a program known as Fresh Moves, where it's a mobile market. They come to neighborhoods that are underserved, where people may be disabled or senior citizens and may not have access to any type of transportation. And they've been quite successful, and you can read more about the Fresh Moves initiative in Chicago. But as I stated earlier, it's similar to almost an ice cream truck, but instead they're bringing fresh fruits and vegetables to people that may not have access to it because of the fact that they don't have transportation or they may be disabled. So let's look at some of these best practices. As the mayor, I would work to partner with the nonprofit organizations, see how we can implement something similar to what they've done in other counties and other municipalities across the country. Thank you.
I think that for way too long, government, church, nonprofits, and the business sector have been working on common goals in their own silos. As mayor, I will emphasize the creation of partnerships to bring solutions to the problems we have, because I do believe that in a society, bringing all the elements together is what we can get things done. A partnership among charitable, business, and government can find a million ways or implement many ways to bring people to the food or food to the people. Many of these ideas have been mentioned, but there's so many more that have been implemented that are working in other places, and we can too. The secret is that we bring the stakeholders together, find solutions to problems together, we address them. That should be one of the simplest things that we can do. Come up with 15 ways that we can either bring people to the food or bring food to the people. Some of them, many of them already being used. It's a matter of us identifying what works for us and implementing it.
Don't holler at me now, but I gotta answer this my own way. I told you in the beginning I'm a critical thinker, and I do a lot of analyzing, and some of this stuff that we see and we know where these things could have been addressed have not been addressed. We have what we call, and I'm sure you know the acronym, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Fund, specifically earmarked for poor people, low to median income and or below, and somewhere above, depending upon the program, where some of this could have been addressed. But we sent millions of dollars back, like we didn't need it. This is a poor community. We're not in Sparta. This is Paterson. And I said it in the beginning, that 50–60% of the people in this town are at or below the federal income poverty guideline. But nobody's been addressing that. It's good thing it's election time, where they got all these ideas, but they never done anything. You know, now everybody's got all these grandiose plans and ideas of what's going to happen, but May 14th, that's out the window. I've worked in this industry for a long time. I've done a lot of the work that's related to poor and underserved. I'm not listening to what some of this other stuff that you're talking about, because it doesn't make sense. What we need to do is go out and challenge the systems that are there and optimize what it is that's available for us, and know that the people that have been in charge sent the money back. I'm not making this up, and I'm not attacking nobody. I'm giving you the facts. That's a fact. Millions of dollars have gone back and continue to go back because of the inability to execute. It's a new season. It's time to hire a new mayor, somebody that knows the programs and can get the work done.
Thank you. We started this together, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. What I'm gonna do, we're gonna go to 1 minute responses, because it's already getting like close to a quarter of, and I want us to get to a few more questions. I want to go back to the topic, none of you want to see more regulation, but in an area that I think everyone does believe there's a need for some regulation, which has to do with health code violations, making sure that if it's a city with many small to medium-sized places serving food, is the city doing a good job in ensuring that you're not getting spoiled food, you're getting food that's when you're going to bodegas that it's whether it's nutritionally valuable or not, that you're not getting food that's out of date, that's going to make you sick. Is the city doing a good job in that? And if not, why not? And if it is, explain that. I guess we start with Amy Lassalani, yes.
Okay, given the fact that I'm the department head for the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Division of Health falls within my jurisdiction, I'm going to say yes. However, there are instances that do get away from us. What people do know, and what I continue to let folks know, is that they need to come to me or call me, and we will get on it. We have inspectors that have regular routes. They check the restaurants, they check the bodegas, they do all of the work that they need to do on an annual basis. And if there's some issues, if there's some concerns, then I may get a call, or they may get a call, or the mayor's office may get a call, and it gets referred to me, so then I refer it to the health inspectors. We're doing a good job. Are we doing a great job? I'm not out there at all of the bodegas, and I'm not out there at all of the restaurants, but I know that the licenses are updated, they're there, and the inspectors are going out and they are doing the full inspections. When I started, I went out to see exactly what they did. So I know what they do when they are going out there. Thank you.
And this is going to feel like I'm in a lightning round, but I want us to move on.
Well, I can answer that. There are any number of ways that someone who's trying to peddle food, legally or illegally, can happen. As the director mentioned, we have made sure that we have a certification and a training program through our health department. We have made sure that whenever there are events that are sponsored or selected at any of our parks and fields, that our health inspectors are out there. Whenever there's a parade or a festival or something of that nature, you have to have it meet those requirements, and we keep people on staff. Can we do more? Absolutely. If we had more resources, we wouldn't have a conversation about it. But it is about balancing our resources with the demand, and it's great demand. And lastly, there has not been millions of dollars sent back anywhere. Don't know where that comes from, but since you don't know the fact, and it's just being presented, I encourage you, find out if it's true. Didn't happen. Thank you.
When it comes to the question of inspection and enforcement, there's always room for improvement. I know firsthand because I'm a strong supporter of eating locally, buying locally, and I make it a habit to dine in South Paterson. Well, recently, a number of restaurants in South Paterson were cited for health violations. And clearly, this is a vibrant area in our city, and that's the last thing we need to send that message. So in regards to the restaurants, some of these hubs that we would consider very vibrant areas, the health inspectors have actually done their work. Now, the hardest part is getting some of these vendors on their own who are acting independently. That's one thing we have to zero in on, because that hurts the mom and pop restaurants. As far as those that have already been established, I believe the health inspectors have done their work, but the hard work is really going after the people that are operating illegally. Thank you.
Before we bring any either new initiatives in or new programs or add to what we have, I think we need to implement what we already have in place and make sure it works efficiently? My answer to the question is yes. We should enforce, we should implement the ordinances, regulations, and that we have in place. I think definitely most of the issues that we complain about, quality of life issues, whether it's cleanliness, noise, restaurants not abiding, usually have provisions to take care of them or to address them rather. So I think we should implement and enforce what we already have.
First of all, let's say Paterson is my Facebook page. You go there and I will post either tonight or tomorrow the millions of dollars that have been set back. I will post that for you. Secondly, you walk into any one of these stores around here and go in there and see the food under the light bulb. Is that compliant to have cooked food delivered to some of the stores? You don't know how it's cooked, okay? You don't know what mechanism was used to cook the food and or what health requirements were met in cooking the food and placed under a light bulb for you to eat. I think that's a violation. You can walk in some of these stores and the aisles are this big. I know I'm a big guy, but I shouldn't have to worry about knocking over the cans of corn walking down the aisle. They're too narrow. It's not safe. So there's plenty of opportunities to go and find stuff. But again, there's just so many things, and I'm not going to blame it on folks that are there in terms of not having enough resources. We're just identifying the issues and bringing it to you.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think for the most part, I think the health department is pretty much doing a good job. It's one of the few departments that really has a significant amount of inspectors. So, does the problem exist? Yes, it does. It's just a question of having a plan, store by store, ensuring that the people are living up to the standards that they should. Thank you.
I have a quick question to the group. It's really, I'm embarrassed that I don't know the answer to it, so it's really someone, and all of you could answer this. Does the city have a 311, like the equivalent of like a 311 number for these kinds of complaints? That if someone goes into a store and they see stuff that's spoiled, is there a mechanism in place in the city for that?
Well, in every store, in every business, there should be a number posted to reach your health department, and there should be something, for example, on our city website, and there should be more information being provided to the public where you can call. If you go to many cities and you see that they have construction jobs going on, you'll always see a number saying, if you see something wrong, call 311. If we don't have it, it should be implemented. But for the most part, I think common sense says to the person, if you walk into a store, you know there's something wrong.
Well, my question is there such a system in Paterson?
Yes, there is.
I think the health director would best answer that question, and she's right here.
The 311 approach was implemented about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It covers a whole gamut of calls. If someone happens to notice that there's a problem in a facility or whatever type it is, they can call it. It does exist.
Okay, thank you. We're getting close to time, but I want to talk about, I think Mr. Sayer touched on it briefly. Clearly, Paterson has a lot of empty land right now. Community gardens is a great concept. Sometimes it actually works better in areas that don't need them because there are security issues and those are not insignificant. Are there opportunities in Paterson today, given the restraints that exist at this moment, are there opportunities to develop more community gardens? Do you see that as a way of perhaps anchoring neighborhoods that may be transitional at the moment? Giving a little leeway with that within 1-minute responses. And I think we start now with the mayor.
Community gardens is something we've advocated for and continue to support. Most recently by Hinchcliffe Stadium, we just put in 36 raised beds or 30 raised beds. We find it as being a benefit for the local communities on Governor Street, Grand Ave, Rosa Parks. We've encouraged folks to build those community gardens. We understand they may not be permanent, and they seem to understand it as well. But it's been very helpful in helping feed families bridge that gap. So we try not to look the long term where we say, well, we don't want to do it because we're going to ultimately tear it down. We encourage it, we support it. I mentioned City Green, who has helped us in terms of the development of these community gardens. And so we're going to continue to advocate that. That's also part of the master plan when we take a look at those opportunities to increase the green space. That's the bigger question. Green space, community gardens, play areas. So we are looking at that, we continue to work on that, and we think that's the way to move for our particular situation.
Community gardens. Also, there are school gardens where you get young people at an early age who recognize the importance of growing your own food and eating more nutritional food. And I'll also point out, City Green has an awards program where they give incentives to residents to plant these community gardens. And I've been a strong supporter of that since its inception. And I will continue to do that as mayor and provide even more assistance as well. But I believe it's essential that these school gardens and community gardens happen where you can beautify your neighborhoods. Property values would increase as a result, and you'll see an overall improvement in the quality of life in these areas. And one component of Sustainable Jersey was to create community and school gardens. We also created a green team and an environmental commission. So these mechanisms are in place, and if they're leveraged correctly, then you can have more community gardens through these nonprofit organizations and volunteer commissions that would be responsible for it. Thank you.
Absolutely, community gardens, vegetable or just to beautify the environment is an idea that it's used widely in New York, for example. And in addition to providing the opportunity to grow your own food, it goes to the area of bringing projects together that communities can do. It affects the area of beautifying our city. And for the most part, they have worked very well in areas that are similar to ours. So absolutely, that's one of the many ideas that we can implement that cover 3 areas. They're useful because they produce something, they bring communities together, and they beautify or better the image that we have.
Mr. Gilmore?
Well, I'm no curmudgeon, but before you plant a garden, I think in a city like Paterson, with the industrial base that we've had, you might want to go out and test the soil. Because you don't know what you're putting in the ground or what was there before, where they might have dumped some of the textile waste and other things that have come out of the factories that were here over the years. You don't know what you might be eating. So yeah, you might want to do a community garden, but I think you might want to have a partnership that employs the testing and certification of the soil prior to planting vegetables and so forth. Flowers really doesn't matter, but if you're going to consume those agricultural items, I think it should be a partnership with testing of the soil.
Mr. Gilmore?
You know, there's something about New Jersey soil. With all the contamination and all the things that we have heard of, there's nothing like a Jersey tomato. So whatever it is that's in that ground, I would strongly push for it, and I think it's a wonderful idea that we do have it. That we want it, and I support it, but we do have it. And if you go into the blighted areas where there's a lot of vacant property, you'll see a lot of the residents have more or less taken ownership over the property and basically have done that. We grow great stuff in New Jersey. I understand Mr. Gilmore's concern, and I agree with him. You really better know where you are planting because you don't know what was there, but let's support it. And it'll give it, I think it'll be more accessible to the local people to grow, having a garden in your own backyard. I think it's an excellent idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
As the mayor has said, City Green has been helpful, instrumental, and has planted, and we have raised beds, so we don't use the soil in the ground, we raise the beds. And actually, I was exploring an idea to do one on Godwin Ave because my family owns property and the house burned down. So we can do raised beds there. So City Green has, was it Rosa Parks and Governor right on the corner, beautiful. Every year they take care of it and the community comes out and helps. So that's one that I do know of. We also have farms up county. And there was a particular farmer that came down to talk with me about what I could do on Godwin Ave on that property, which is also, again, raised beds. So that is something beautiful to do, and it will be almost like a community organizer, if you will, because people want to see what you're doing, and they want to help, and then they want to, come and eat the collard greens, So I was like, okay, thank you.
Did we start with you, Mayor?
Yeah, we started with me. I just want to say John F. Kennedy High School and a couple other the schools have actually invested in the raised beds, and we've had partnerships with the county, and it's been going on in the city for a while. And it's just a way of trying to encourage it. It is a good thing.
Okay.
I'm
going to throw out a softball. We've gone to 8, and so we're going to run a little later because they have to do a raffle. I'm just curious. I'm throwing this out because I'm in the editorial business and we throw out ideas that don't happen. A lot of talk about things by the Great Falls. One of the things, maybe I've missed the conversation, but we hear about the 52 different ethnic groups and any possibility of a large ethnic food hall at the Great Falls. Food hall. The kind of thing you see at Fenway, up in Fenwell Hall up in Boston or in New Harbor, but kind of place where you.
Well, certainly one of our strongest assets is the ethnic diversity we have, and we have many ethnic enclaves in the city of Paterson, whether it be on 21st Avenue, the Colombian experience, the Dominican experience, on Park Avenue, Jamaican on 10th, and South Paterson.
This is more of a yes or no.
Yeah. Well, I want to do
Okay.
So yes, because we have everything in place to make it happen, and you can draw from all those different communities as far as your ethnic enclave is concerned. So I would advocate for that strongly, a taste of Paterson.
Yes, because it's long overdue. Now, we use one of our greatest assets, which is diversity that we have in the city. Absolutely, yes.
That's a no-brainer, and I certainly would want to try to promote the ethnicity and the diversity in the town. The problem is going to be trying to pay for it.
The area below the falls is called the ATP site. It's where the old gun coal mill used to be. It's got about 7.5 acres of land over there, and it's contaminated, yes. And there's been archaeological people down there trying to find some things that resonated with the old gun factory and things like that for, I don't know how many years now it's been, maybe 14, 15 years I can recall. Nothing has been done there. Part of that land now has been taken over by the National Park Service, which leaves us about 3.5 acres of land. That would be the ideal location for something like that. That's something anybody should push for on this panel. Thank you.
Okay, well, my first initial thought was, no, it would take away from the beautiful park and the landscape and all of the greenery. But then, based on what Councilman Gallagher said, I can see that. I've been to Fenway Hall in Boston, so I know what that looks like. But I just wouldn't want to take away from the beautiful nature of the Great Falls Park. And if we can use it build something like that on property that we can't plant anyway because of the contamination, then I would agree with that.
Here's the unfortunate reality. The Great Falls National Park, when it's fully conveyed to the United States government, will be owned by the United States government. And they have a plan, and they're working on a plan. They will be the only ones who will be able to dictate what happens. However, ATP site does pose that opportunity. It is not under the national park jurisdiction. It is in second and or third phase. So there is potential there, also including the Snake River as part of hydroponic technology or something like that. But I just need to say, the national park will not be ours. It will be shared. It will be governed and regulated by the federal government. So that is a real issue moving forward.
Thank you. We actually ran over, and I appreciate everyone. I've heard some of these forums are a little more raucous than others. I appreciate everyone was pretty much on point. I have to say this has been a very interesting campaign for the record to be following. There are a lot of qualified folks running, and the people of Paterson have some hard choices to make. I encourage you all to vote, because that is an extraordinarily important part of the Democratic franchise. Turning it back over, there's a raffle, and I guess there's some goodies behind it. So thank you very much.